The dismissal. The morning sun had just begun to stretch over the rooftops of Crestmore Hills, casting long shadows across the cobblestone driveway of the Mercer estate. Inside, the kitchen buzzed softly with the quiet hum of appliances, the smell of fresh bread in the air, and the gentle clink of ceramic mugs on marble. Sophia Mercer poured herself a cup of black coffee, the way she liked it, simple and strong. Her hair was tied back in a loose bun, and she wore a faded green sweater and black leggings. She didn't look like a billionaire's wife, and that's how she liked it. Across the room, her husband, Julian Mercer, adjusted his cufflinks. A man with an empire in logistics, shipping, and real estate, Julian had learned to navigate the ruthless world of global business without ever needing to be the loudest in the room. But today wasn't about power. It was about a handshake, one that could secure a multi-billion-dollar deal with a Nordic transport conglomerate. "You sure you don't want me to come with you?" Julian asked, watching her carefully. Sophia smiled over her mug. "It's a car dealership, Jules. I think I'll survive." "I know," he said, frowning. "But I don't like that place. Weston Motors gives me a weird vibe. Too flashy. Too performative. Which is exactly why I'm going. I want something reliable, not a red carpet." She walked up and kissed his cheek. "Go seal your deal. I'll be fine. If they don't take me seriously, it's their loss." Julian hesitated but nodded. "You've got your card." She raised her keychain. The black platinum credit card dangled next to her keys. "Right here. I'm just a woman in sweats with a 7-figure limit." Julian chuckled. "Don't burn the place down. No promises." They parted at the front door with a soft laugh, neither of them realizing this ordinary day was about to spiral into something extraordinary. Weston Motors sat at the edge of downtown, a shimmering glass palace flaunting high-end brands like it was auditioning for a luxury magazine spread. Floor-to-ceiling windows, champagne dispensers in the lounge, and digital display panels showcasing every model's 360-degree spin. It was more gallery than dealership. Sophia parked her old SUV in a guest spot and stepped out. She looked, by all appearances, like someone who'd wandered in from yoga class. No makeup, no jewelry, no designer logos. As she walked into the showroom, heads turned, not because of her wealth or presence, but because she didn't look like the kind of customer they catered to. A tall man in a slim-cut suit approached her with a forced smile. Good morning, miss. Looking for someone?" Sophia blinked. "Yes. I'm looking for a car, preferably something with good safety features and comfortable suspension. I do a lot of driving." The salesman, his name tag read Durek, eyed her leggings and plain sneakers. "You sure you're in the right place?" "I think so," she said. "I saw online that the new LX900 came in this week." Derek let out a short laugh. "The LX900 starts at $160,000. Maybe you'd like to look at the certified pre-owned section. We have a few older models that—" "I'm not interested in used," Sophia said calmly. He looked at her again, this time openly skeptical. "Right. Why don't you take a seat, and I'll find someone to help you. Just over there." He pointed to a bench near the exit. Sophia raised an eyebrow. "You're not going to show me the car? We don't just let anyone test drive our new arrivals, miss. Maybe come back with someone who can, verify finances." That one hit her. "Excuse me." "Look," he sighed. "This happens more than you'd think. People come in dressed like they're going grocery shopping, hoping to touch luxury. But this isn't a playground." Sophia stood frozen. The word hadn't sunk in all the way. Dressed like she was going grocery shopping. A playground. A second salesman, this one older, balding, walked up and whispered something to Derek. "Oh," Derek said, eyes lighting up. "Security, right. Yes, I think it's best if we escort you out. Just policy." "Escort me out," she repeated, her voice a quiet storm. The second salesman laughed. "Come back when your husband's with you. or at least someone with a real card. They didn't touch her, but they walked behind her slowly, guiding her out the doors like she was some sort of criminal, a stray. As she stepped out onto the sidewalk, heart pounding, face flushed with humiliation, she reached into her purse. Her phone was gone. Still inside, on the bench. She turned back toward the doors, but they were already locked. They hadn't even let her retrieve her belongings. Later that day, Julian had wrapped his deal by 3 p.m. His clients from Oslo were celebrating, but he declined the champagne. Something didn't sit right with him. He'd texted Sophia hours ago. No reply. Called. No answer. She never ignored his calls. By 3:15, he had his assistant track the location of her phone. Still pinging from Weston Motors, the assistant confirmed. Julian's eyes hardened. He excused himself from the meeting and made the first of 3 calls. The second call was to a woman named Melinda Park, an old college friend turned regional news reporter. The third call, to his private investigator. At 4:17 p.m., Julian sat in his Maybach parked across from Weston Motors. Inside, through the mirrored glass, he could see Sophia's phone still sitting unattended. He stepped out, adjusted his suit, walked across the street. The security guard outside gave him a polite nod. Julian nodded back, but didn't stop. The automatic doors slid open. Derek looked up from the desk and immediately smiled. "Sir, welcome to Weston Motors. What can we do for you today?" Julian didn't smile back. "You threw my wife out of here." Derek blinked. I'm sorry. She was here earlier. Brown hair, green sweater, drove an older Toyota SUV. You and your team called security on her, locked her out, kept her phone." A pause. A moment of recognition. "Oh," Derek stammered. "That was your wife." "Look, sir, I had no idea. She didn't say she was." "She didn't have to," Julian cut in. His voice was calm, but there was ice behind it. "And now you're going to explain why she was treated like a trespasser instead of a customer." "Sir," the second man, balding, red-faced, jumped in. "This is a misunderstanding. We thought she was loitering." Julian stepped closer. "Let me be very clear. My wife has a higher net worth than this entire building. But that's not the point. The point is, you don't humiliate anyone who walks through those doors. Not because of how they dress. Not because of the car they drive." A third man, presumably the dealership manager, rushed over, sensing trouble. "Mr. Mercer, Julian Mercer, we didn't realize." "No, you didn't," Julian said, his voice dropping lower. "But you're going to." He reached into his coat and pulled out a manila envelope. "Effective immediately," he said, placing it on the manager's desk. "Mercer Group Holdings has assumed majority ownership of Weston Motors regional operations. This location is now under new management." The room went dead silent. And Julian smiled, just slightly. "We'll be hosting a mandatory training seminar for all staff tomorrow. Those who don't wish to attend can find the door." The unveiling. Julian Mercer stood at the head of the long conference table in the Weston Motors boardroom, now under his control. The blinds were drawn. The atmosphere tense. Across from him sat the dealership's executive staff, including the regional director who'd flown in from Denver that very morning after hearing whispers of a hostile acquisition. Derek and the balding man, whose name turned out to be Trevor, stood awkwardly against the wall, no longer confident salesmen but silent statues waiting for judgment. At the back of the room sat a woman named Grace Yu, the dealership's front desk receptionist. She looked out of place among the executives, yet Julian had personally invited her. "Before we begin," Julian said, clicking the small remote, "let's review a moment of yesterday's customer service." The projector on the wall lit up. Security footage, retrieved overnight by Julian's team, showed Sophia entering the dealership, wandering past cars with visible interest, asking for assistance. Then Derek appeared. The room fell into a heavy silence as they watched him usher Sophia toward the door with thinly veiled contempt. Trevor leaned in, placing a firm hand on her back. Everyone saw it, heard the words. "We don't have time for window shoppers. Try the lot across town. We cater to serious buyers here." And finally, her shoulders tightening as the door locked behind her. Julian let the clip finish. He turned to the room, eyes steady. "This was your welcome." No one spoke. Julian's voice was calm, almost too calm. "This could have been anyone's wife, anyone's daughter, but it wasn't. It was mine. And you didn't just insult her. You revealed your company's character." He paced slowly. "Now here's what happens next." Everyone sat straighter. Meanwhile, Sophia sat outside in her garden, knees drawn up to her chest. The incident from the day before kept looping in her mind like a broken film reel. No matter how many times she told herself to let it go, her body still reacted. Palms sweaty, throat tight, heart beating just a little too fast. She wasn't the type to break down over something like this. But it wasn't about the car. It was about how invisible they made her feel. About how no one, not a single soul, stood up. She heard the patio door creak behind her. Turning, she saw Julian walking out, holding a laptop and a soft blanket. "I need you to see something," he said, voice gentle. They sat together on the bench. He opened the laptop and played the surveillance clip. Sophia watched herself on screen. Watched the way she tried to speak up, the way she was dismissed. Her throat tightened again. Julian turned the laptop toward her. "Now watch this part." A new clip played. Grace, the front desk receptionist, arguing with direct moments after Sophia left. "You can't treat people like that," she said. "You don't know who that was." Direct had sneered. Grace fired back. "Does it matter? You don't treat anyone like that." Back in the garden, Sophia's hand covered her mouth. She tried to stop them. "She did," Julian nodded. "She was the only one." Sophia looked at the screen, eyes glistening. "What happened to her?" "She's getting promoted." Back at Weston Motors, the dealership had been closed for the day. A sign on the door read, "Undergoing reorganization. Please visit our other locations." Inside, the showroom had transformed. Gone were the luxury displays and cocktail stations. In their place, folding chairs had been arranged into neat rows, each one filled with employees wearing unsure expressions. Julian stepped onto the small platform at the front of the room. No suit today, just a black sweater and gray slacks. He didn't need a power tie to command the room. "Good morning," he began. "Today's training session isn't your average PR stunt. This is personal." He paused, letting the weight of that land. "You've all seen the footage by now. You know what happened. And if you think this is just about punishing a couple of bad apples, think again." He gestured to the side, and the screen behind him lit up again. A slideshow began. Customer complaints, unanswered emails from diverse clients, footage of employees ignoring minorities or older couples. 3 former staff members of color who had mysteriously been let go within months of hiring. The employees shifted in their seats. "Weston Motors doesn't just have a few bad actors," Julian said. "It has a culture problem. And that's about to change." Then came the surprises. Julian invited Grace Yu to the stage. She walked up slowly, eyes wide with disbelief. The employees clapped, some of them just beginning to realize where this was heading. Effective immediately, Julian said, "Grace is our new customer experience director. She will lead a new training and diversity initiative that begins today. Every employee here will complete it." He continued, "We're also launching a partnership with the Right to Respect Foundation to provide scholarships for marginalized youth interested in automotive careers. This will be funded entirely by the profits from this branch for the next 6 months." Gasps echoed around the room. "And finally," he added, "let's talk about the future." Back at home. Later that night, Sophia sat in their sunroom, scrolling through her phone. The internet had exploded. A local news station had picked up the story. then a national outlet, then a trending hashtag. Hashtag Justice 8 Weston. But the story wasn't about her humiliation anymore. It was about how one woman stood up, how one man used his power to lift others up, how one dealership turned into a symbol of change. Julian walked in carrying 2 cups of tea. "Hey," she said, eyes glowing now. "Have you seen this one?" She held up her phone. A former Weston employee just posted a video. He said he quit 3 years ago because of discrimination. Now he wants to reapply under Grace's leadership. Julian smiled. Good. He sat beside her, placing a hand on her knee. "Tomorrow, we visit the lot again." Sophia groaned. "Julian, this time," he said softly, "you drive out with whatever car you want. No card check. No questions. You walk in as yourself, and they'll treat you like royalty. Not because you're my wife, because you're a human being." But there was still one piece missing. The original manager, Derek, had vanished after being fired. But Julian's investigator found out he was trying to apply for a position at a competing dealership, under a new name. Julian made a single phone call, not to ruin the man, but to warn the new company of his past. They thanked him. Then Julian called Derek himself. "I could have buried you," Julian said, "but I didn't." There was silence. "You're not fired because you failed to sell a car. You're fired because you forgot what business you're in. You're not selling machines. You're serving people." Click. Julian hung up. The redemption drive. 2 weeks had passed since Weston Motors was shut down, restructured, and reborn under Julian Mercer's leadership. The transformation had been swift, brutal for some, but long overdue. Now, the grand reopening was set for that Saturday. A media-covered event, complete with local press, community leaders, and customers old and new. The new slogan, placed in gold letters across the building's front windows, read, "Luxury is not in the metal, but in the treatment of people." Julian stood at the entrance, adjusting the sleeves of his navy shirt, no jacket this time. Beside him stood Grace Yu, beaming in a navy blue dress and heels she'd bought just for the occasion. She'd gone from receptionist to department head in 2 weeks, and the pride she wore was unmistakable. A crowd had gathered, not just for the cars, but for the transformation itself. Former customers who once swore never to return were now curious, skeptical, hopeful. Among them were people like Mr. Ortiz, who had once been ignored at the SUV counter while trying to trade in a rare vintage model, or Mrs. Claiborne, an elderly widow who had been told her credit score might not match our aesthetic years ago. They were all invited back personally. Sophia, however, had not yet arrived. Because today, Julian had a surprise of his own, the past that sparked it all. The night before, Sophia had found Julian sitting quietly in his home office, staring at a photograph. It was old, faded edges, slightly curled from years spent in a leather wallet. It showed a much younger Julian standing beside an elderly black woman with a kind smile and a rusted-out old truck behind them. "Who's that?" Sophia asked gently. Julian sighed. Her name was Miss Hattie. "She ran a little auto shop back in Georgia when I was broke and drifting between jobs. I wandered into town with no money, a busted engine, and enough pride to choke a horse." Sophia smiled. "What did she do?" "She fixed my car for free. Told me, a man might be down, but that don't make him cheap." He ran a finger over the photo. "She gave me more than a running engine. She gave me dignity when I had none left." He looked up at Sophia, eyes glassy. "I think that's why this whole thing with the dealership hit me so hard. It wasn't just about you. It was about what they tried to take from you, what Hattie once gave to me." Sophia leaned forward and kissed his forehead. "So what are you going to do about it?" Julian smiled. "What Miss Hattie would have done. Fix it. For good." Back at Weston Motors. As the ribbon-cutting began, Grace took the mic first. She told the story of how she once wanted to quit, but stayed on because she believed things could change. She introduced new faces, young salespeople from diverse backgrounds who had gone through Weston's new inclusive training program. "We sell cars," Grace said, "but our real product is trust." Applause rippled through the crowd. Then Julian stepped up, shaking hands with reporters, thanking attendees. But just as he began his prepared remarks, he paused. "There's someone here who belongs on this stage more than I do," he said. "Someone who reminded us what integrity looks like and how quickly it can be dismissed." He gestured toward the parking lot. Sophia's new car, a sleek Obsidian LX 900, pulled in slowly, but she wasn't driving. Instead, it was a 17-year-old girl named Alondra Rivera, one of the dealership's new interns. The crowd turned. Sophia stepped out from the passenger side, dressed in the same green sweater she wore the day she was humiliated. Her head was held high. Proud. Radiant. Grace rushed to meet her. They hugged tightly. Julian smiled. "This woman came here 2 weeks ago and was told she didn't belong," he said, the microphone amplifying his voice across the entire lot. "They judged her by her shoes, her car, her lack of diamonds. What they didn't see was a woman with enough class to stay silent, until justice spoke louder." The crowd clapped, many standing. "And today," Julian continued, "she's not here to buy a car. She's here to gift one." A quiet murmur ran through the audience. Sophia stepped up and took the mic. "This dealership will now sponsor a new annual initiative," she said, voice calm but steady. "Every year, we'll give one deserving young person, someone hardworking, responsible, and respectful, a fully paid vehicle and mentorship for their future." She looked at Alondra. "This year, it goes to you." The girl gasped, hand flying to her mouth. She looked to Julian, to Grace, then back to Sophia, who was now holding out the keys. "This isn't a charity car," Sophia said softly. "It's a symbol of what happens when we invest in people before judging them." Applause erupted again, louder this time. Reporters scrambled for their cameras, catching every angle, every tear streaming down Alondra's face. Later that evening, the dealership had quieted down. The signs had been taken down. The media trucks had rolled away. Inside the now peaceful showroom, Julian and Sophia walked hand in hand. "You were right," Sophia said. "We turned a moment of pain into something bigger." Julian pulled her into a soft hug. "That's what Hattie would have done." They walked over to the back office, where Grace was filing some final paperwork and humming to herself. "Grace," Julian said, "we have one more proposal for you." She looked up. Julian smiled. "How do you feel about managing 5 dealerships?" Grace's eyes went wide. "You're expanding." Sophia nodded. "You're not just a good employee, Grace. You're the kind of leader the industry needs. So let's make it happen." Grace broke down crying, grateful, overwhelmed, and empowered all at once. 1 week later, the Wall Street Journal ran a full-page article titled, "The Dealership That Changed Everything. From Prejudice to Power." Online, #JustToC8Weston had turned into a viral trend. But for Julian and Sophia, the biggest win wasn't the headlines. It was seeing people walk through the doors without fear of judgment, watching customers of every background, age, and income level be treated with genuine respect. It was hearing Grace on the phone, offering a single mother financing options that didn't feel like traps. It was seeing Alondra pick up her little brother from school in a car she never thought she'd own. It was giving back what someone like Miss Hattie once gave Julian: human dignity. EPIOGE. On a quiet Sunday morning, Julian and Sophia sat in their garden, the newspaper folded on the table, untouched. Sophia leaned into him. "You know," she said, "that first day when they pushed me out of that dealership, I felt invisible." Julian looked at her. "And now?" She smiled. "Now I feel like we made the world see a little better." Julian kissed her hand. "That's all I ever wanted." They sipped their coffee in silence, the weight of injustice replaced by something much stronger: hope.